Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Season 1 of the TV version of Building the Future is now streaming online at buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Suzanne and Karen from Wingpact. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you guys on the show. I think what you guys are doing is really interesting, but maybe kind of before we get into what you guys are doing, let's kind of get to know each one of you a little bit better, and maybe you want to give a little bit of a intro?
Sure. Go ahead, Suzanne. You can start. Okay, well, my name is Suzanne Andrews, and my, official career background is in tech. I was a software engineer at Apple for 10 years, and then after that I was home raising children for another large chunk of time. And, when I came back into professional life after that, I started working at the Indy DeBorg Institute, which is a nonprofit organization in Palo Alto that works to advance women in technical careers. So that was really exciting to me because my technical background was helping me to have an opportunity to make positive change in the world. And while I was there, I just started getting more exposed to startup culture and hearing about women entrepreneurs. Of course, I'm in the thick of Silicon Valley, but I was a little oblivious when I was home with my kids. So I learned that women entrepreneurs are statistically more successful and a better return on investment than men entrepreneurs, but still underfunded.
Interesting.
So that's when I got really interested in learning about food. I wondered what it would take. This sounds like an opportunity to make a difference in the world and possibly make some money. So I wonder what it would take to fund women-run companies. And so that's when I joined the Pipeline Angels boot camp training for women angel investors. And that's where I met Karen and my other Wingpact co-founders, and we learned about angel investing together, and then we decided that it was really powerful and exciting when we wanted more women to know about it, and that's why we founded Wingpact and wrote our book.
Okay, very cool.
That's kind of the overview of how I got here.
Interesting. And Karen, do you want to maybe give a quick background?
Sure, yeah. My background by education is in psychology and in school counseling, and I was a teacher for a couple years and then a child and adolescent school counselor. And then I also stopped working to raise kids for about 10 years and loved that, but did feel like a little something was missing from my life professionally, and was in the process of figuring all of that out along with a divorce and a major life transition. And on the other end of that, I discovered the Pipeline Angels program that Suzanne just mentioned, and it's an intensive training program for women that want to learn about angel investing in order to fund more female entrepreneurs. And it was really transformative. And I met my colleagues that I founded Wingpact with, and we have since written a book called Impact with Wings. And we have made one collective investment in a women-led company and have also made several individual investments on our own. And it's been a really empowering, enlightening process, just realizing how much harder it is for female entrepreneurs to secure funding, and also just to be on the receiving end and be able to help these companies grow.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'm kind of curious to know, why is it kind of traditionally been harder for females to get funding?
Well, we could probably both answer that question. My short answer is that the majority of investors are still men, and investors do tend, by statistics, they still tend to choose entrepreneurs that resemble them in some way or another, or who have a company or a product or service that resonates with them. And so it's not necessarily always a result of sexism, but there is just some intrinsic bias maybe toward investing in those that feel the most familiar to oneself.
Sure.
So that's one explanation that's been shown. Suzanne, you probably have some more reasons to add to that.
Well, I mean, I think we don't really know for sure why all the investment data is the way it is, but that's sort of a prevailing theory that people invest in, women that in entrepreneurs that they can relate to. There's just, like I mentioned, there's been tons and tons of data that show that diverse teams perform better and women statistically, build bigger companies with less capital and all that kind of stuff. But that all that science and numbers and logic really hasn't significantly changed the behavior of the mainline male-dominated investment community. So that's, one of the reasons it's so exciting to have more women coming into the investment field.
Sure. No, that's interesting. So I'm curious though, when you say that, women will build more successful companies without spending less money, and there's stats to say that they're building even more successful companies sometimes than men. Like, what is that kind of based on, I guess, or why do you think that is?
Again, I don't know the reasons why. It's just that, we have studies, and some of them may be quoted in our book. I know we have some sections that have a lot of statistics, but there's just studies that look at, number of entrepreneurs by gender and how much money they raise and how big their companies get. And so it's based on those statistics. And okay. I don't know the reason, why.
I mean, my personal theory behind that would be that women-led companies tend to be more representative of what the population is like, and so therefore it could most likely serve the population a little bit more effectively, because if the board is diverse and the founding voices are diverse, the company is much more likely to really take into consideration the clientele and the customers in a more widespread context.
Sure.
No, women tend to start their companies later in life, so women, typical, again, statistically, these are broad generalizations, but women tend to maybe have more professional and business experience under their belt before they start their companies. I mean, we don't know. It's all conjecture, but yeah.
No, that's really interesting. So kind of walk me through Wingpact and exactly kind of what you guys do and kind of how it all came to be.
Yeah, well, we met each other during the Pipeline Angels program, and toward the end of that program, we enjoyed our work together so much that we wanted to found a company, and so we started Wingpact. And our first main project has been the writing of this book that we just published, and we're really excited about. Okay. And each of us has written one chapter in the book, and then we also have two contributing authors who are prominent investors and or experts in the field of gender studies. Jerry Stengel from Ventureneer, I think her company is called, is fantastic, and she writes a lot for Forbes and other publications on gender diversity.
Sure.
And we decided to put together our whole collection of personal stories and research and interviews and data to really illustrate the need for more women to tap into the capital that they have and to use it in more meaningful ways, because women control the fastest growing segment of the world's wealth. And in Suzanne's chapter, she can speak more to this, it's been cited that by 2030, women will control more than 2/3 of the wealth within the United States.
Really?
So
Interesting.
There's a lot of money that women do have access to, and we feel and really believe that when values are aligned with money, women often become empowered, and they want to make that connection. They want to use their money in meaningful ways and advance other women. So we're just trying to bring that to the forefront and really emphasize the need for women investors, more women investors. And of course, we'd like to see more female-founded companies get funded as a result. So that's the mission of our book. And
Okay.
then
What's the book called?
from,
Just for people out there.
yeah, it's called Impact with Wings.
Okay.
And then there's a subtitle, and the subtitle is Stories to Inspire and Mobilize Women, Angel Investors, and Entrepreneurs.
Okay, and where can people get the book?
Amazon.
Okay.
And some local Bay Area bookstores are carrying it right now, too.
Okay, awesome. So, and I'll post a link to that in the show notes as well. But I think it's good to kind of mention where people can get it as well. But sorry, I cut you off, so keep going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then as a company, we have plans to go further with our mission. And the book is just a launching pad for us. But our mission remains to activate more women angel investors and to get more funding to female entrepreneurs. And so Dan could probably take it from there and maybe throw in a few more projects in the pipeline.
Sure.
Well, yeah, thank you, Karen. And I also just wanted to mention again in terms of the original founding of Wingpact, when we were finishing our class, and we all kind of had our own perspectives of why it had been so enlightening and exciting to us. We sat around and said, well, why? At that time, I think it was maybe only 13% of angel investors were women. That number's grown in the last couple of years, but we were like, well, why don't women invest in companies? They have the capital, it's really cool, there's tons of opportunity. And we really realized that in our circle of friends, we felt like it just doesn't occur to women. It's just not part of the conversation. And there actually has been research since then in the last couple of years by Alicia Rock, looking at the question, why don't women become angel investors? And a huge reason is because nobody ever suggests to them that that's a possibility. So that was really the impetus behind the book. It's like we are, this year with launching this book and with every book launch event that we do, we're suggesting to people that they could be an angel investor now or someday in the future. We have whole generations of women that are interested in this new idea. So it's really just getting it in front of women as a possibility.
So I guess...
let's see, you were asking about... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's okay.
Well, you were asking about upcoming programs or what we're going to be doing in the future. And we're looking at programs to, again, just get the word out to more women and support the women investor community so that once women start investing, they stay and they find it worthwhile and possibly education. So for this year, really just we're doing book launches events all over the country, possibly all over the world, and those in themselves are just planting the seed in lots of women's minds.
Sure. No, that's interesting. So what do you tell kind of somebody that's looking to become an investor and they have the money? Like, how do you kind of inspire them to start, and what do you tell them?
Go ahead, Suzanne. Well, we direct people to our website, wingpact.com, which has a resource guide. I think it's called a beginner's guide or something like that, which was, actually the environment for women angels and new women angels right now in the last couple of years since we started writing the book. It's just exploding, and there's tons. I mean, there's obviously pipeline angels that we've mentioned a couple of times, but there's other women-focused training organizations. There's women investor organizations. There's, there's just a lot of resources on the web. So if women are just ready to go, we direct them to those resources. We are also, Karen and I did a workshop recently called Talking Money with Women, and part of the dynamic that we're interested in looking at is like women don't really seem to talk about their money very much, or there's social dynamics around not appearing wealthy and that sort of thing, and we think this inhibits women's ability to really acknowledge the resources that they have and take good advantage of them for creating a future. So we're looking at programs to just sort of get women talking about these issues and thinking about, this is an area where it could make a bigger difference if I really took hold of and took control of what I really have.
Yeah, my chapter in particular addresses taboos that some of us hold around money and the discomfort that a lot of us feel around discussing it, and the importance of confronting these taboos and coming to terms with what we do have and what we could be doing with our resources more powerfully. So generating more discussion around our finances is another one of our goals as a company, is just to get women talking about money more comfortably.
Okay, interesting. So how do you kind of, like you say, you mentioned kind of like taboos and getting people, women talking about this, but like obviously I can't fully, like, I understand what you're talking about, but obviously I can't fully comprehend like it exactly because I'm a male, right? So I'm kind of curious to know, like, what have you guys kind of seen that make women not want to talk about money or investing or kind of that whole taboo side of things?
Ooh, that's a big question. Well, I think that as a society, there are definitely taboos around money. So a lot of it is social conditioning. But among friends, it can be extremely uncomfortable talking about it, just because of the discrepancy sometimes among salaries or family lifestyles or savings or demands that one might have on him or her. There's also, I think, an embarrassment for some women around having resources. For me, that's part of my story in my chapter, was just coming to terms with wealth when I had never really identified with it before. And when I stepped out of my marriage and really rebuilt my life as a single person, this was one of my greatest challenges, was owning what I had and recognizing it, because I had never before seen myself as being a person that had money. And
Okay.
I found myself with resources that I'd never really owned, and I wanted to make sure that the next step in my life was going to involve powerful, meaningful decisions with those new resources. So I think I do believe that there are still taboos around money, for sure. And they just are different from one person to the next.
Sure, and I guess it's probably depending on like your friend group or your social group or kind of who you hang out with too, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so what, like, I know there's not really a magical number to this, but, and you guys probably get asked this all the time, and I'm always kind of curious because I always seem to get kind of the same answer but slightly different, is like, how much money should you have to kind of start investing? Is it like a percentage of your net worth? Is it, $20,000, $100,000, $500,000? Like, what do you kind of roughly tell people to start out with when they're looking to kind of get in and invest in people or companies?
Well, to be an accredited investor, those rules have actually just changed recently within the past few weeks as far as holding equity in a business. Is that correct, Suzanne? This is a new rule. But to be an accredited investor, by definition, means that as a married couple, you need to have an income of $300,000 or more.
Okay.
A single person, $200,000 or more, or a net worth of $1 million, excluding your primary residence.
Okay.
So that's the government's definition of what an accredited investor is. But with crowdfunding and the evolution of crowdfunding these days, it's taking on a whole new life of its own. And an investor does not need to have those resources to begin to invest. And even now to hold equity in a company, it's now possible for anybody to do it over a crowdfunding platform.
Sure.
And there is our co-author Wendy Sin writes. She's an investment banker with State Street, and she does write in her chapter about, guidelines for how much of your resources. But I think standard guidelines are, no more than 5 to 10% of your assets. You need to consider that you want to have a portfolio strategy because, many of your companies will fail. So ideally, a portfolio of 10 or more companies. You need to not ever invest money in a company that you couldn't afford to lose, and also, investing at early seed stage, in the angel time frame, you probably won't see your money for another 5 to 7 years if you do have a return at all. So those are some of the guidelines, as Karen said, with the new rules with the crowdfunding portal. The asset requirements are lower, and then you're allowed to make smaller investments, I believe, more in the range of $5,000. So there's still requirements and limits. It's not like anybody can do equity investing, but it's opening up for more people. And anybody, of course, can participate in crowdfunding, which is not necessarily for equity, but for other benefits.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's really good advice. So you guys also invest in companies, correct?
Yeah.
Do you guys want to maybe cover some companies that you guys have invested in, or kind of what you guys look for when you're going to invest in companies?
Yeah, sure. One of my companies that I am always happy to talk about and excited to talk about is called Cooley.
Okay.
And it is a company founded by a young woman named Lisa Curtis, who was in the Peace Corps about 7 or 8 years ago, and discovered this plant in West Africa called moringa. And it's a very densely nutritious plant that grows through drought periods and is very sustainable. And she wanted to bring it to the Western market. And so she has women cooperative farms all over Haiti now and parts of West Africa.
Oh, wow.
And she's harvesting the plant for a powder, nutrition powder that's already being sold here in the States, and nutrition bars that are in Whole Foods already and many supermarkets nationwide already. So she's doing really well.
Wow.
And it all started with her Peace Corps experience. And women farmers are getting a kickback, of course, from all the work that they're contributing. And so it's a real effort, a real collaborative effort to empower women within the company. They're right on board with our mission as a company as well to empower women. And there are several other companies that I'm equally excited to talk about, but I'll go ahead and let Suzanne mention them.
All right.
One of my investments that I'm really excited about, I've invested in a company called Portfolio.
Okay.
Which is founded by Trish Costello, who's been working in women's entrepreneurship and venture capital in general for decades. And so she's very well connected and she really knows the scene. But Portfolio is a platform to connect women entrepreneurs and women investors. I mean, it's open to everybody, of course, but it's geared towards being the go-to location for anybody who wants to be involved in women's startup ecosystem. And one of the reasons that it's exciting to me to have invested in Portfolio is because her mission is so closely aligned with Wingpact, with total partners. Her mission is to activate more women investors, for all of the reasons that we've already discussed. And, there's a lot of room for new knowledge and innovation in this area because, you've been asking us these questions like, why are there money taboos with women, or why don't women invest, or why, are women entrepreneurs more successful? So she's had an opportunity on her platform to do a fair amount of innovation in finding ways to bring more women into investing. Like, for example, she has a set of funds. The first one's called the Rising Tide Fund, But she calls them Learn by Doing funds. And these are opportunities for new women investors to invest alongside experienced women and learn from them and invest smaller amounts of money. And we're starting to see, in portfolio and also in other indications that women like to get involved in investing in companies. They like to kind of test it out before they jump in with large amounts of money. And they also like to feel really well informed about what they're doing. So this kind of experimental education, learn by doing opportunities are working really well to bring more women into the ecosystem with their investment dollars. So that portfolio, that's one that I'm really excited about.
That's very cool. Do you guys want to cover a couple more?
Yeah, sure.
Well, should we talk about the one that we started with?
Yeah, go ahead.
Music?
Sure.
Yeah, so the training program that Karen and I and our co-founders met in Pipeline Angels, it's also kind of a learn by doing setup where you actually go through the process of making an investment together while also meeting mentors and learning all the material that you need to learn. So, you meet 1 or 2 days a month over 4 to 6 months, and during that time, we received applications from 60 women-run social impact companies. We read the applications and we invited 7 or 8 of them to come pitch to us. We listened to pitches. We were the investors. We asked all the questions, and we chose 3 to 4 companies to go into. Ultimately, so the way the class works is everyone has agreed to put in $5,000 into the class agrees to choose one company that they all invest in. So the company that we chose as a group is called 7Ps Music. Okay. And the founder, Brooke Wentz, is an expert in global music licensing, and she's been in the music industry for a long time and is very well connected. But she is gathering her platform, 7Ps Music, brings global music to. It's mostly content producers, people who are making video content, whether it's for the news or for advertising or whatever. The interest in having appropriate global music that's appropriate to your content is growing. And so, while at the same time providing a marketplace for these global artists who, many of them come from places or situations where they would not have that kind of a marketplace otherwise. And the company's doing great. Her music library is growing. Her technology is innovative. And so that's the company that the whole class invested in together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a way for media makers to procure more authentic world music for their films or their documentaries or whatever they may be working on, just to represent cultures a little bit more accurately.
Sure, that's very cool, actually.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's another one that I am really excited about too that I recently invested in, and it's called My Lab Box.
Okay.
And it's a do-it-yourself kit for testing for STDs, and it's completely anonymous and half the cost of going to a doctor's office. And it's to me, it's long overdue and serves a purpose and fills a niche that is very much needed. And they're doing great. You can already find these kits in Walgreens, or you can just order them directly. .com. And there's results within 2 to 5 days, and then follow-up phone calls for medication if needed, and it's completely anonymous and really takes the stigma off of going to the doctor's office to discuss these issues. So that's another one that I'm excited about. It's growing very rapidly and is doing tremendous things for public health.
Sure. No, I think that's awesome. So I'm kind of curious. You guys mentioned, you have an investment that's in Walgreens and then you have somebody in like Whole Foods and stuff. Do you guys kind of help with that as well, or you kind of expect the entrepreneur to kind of hustle that as well, or is it a little bit of both? I'm always kind of curious to know how you guys get people in these kind of big brand name stores.
Yeah, well, we use our connections and our network as much as possible. So it really depends on the entrepreneur and how far along they are when we meet them. Making an angel investment can happen at the very, very beginning of a company's trajectory, or down the road once they're already pretty well established. So it really just depends. It depends on what our backgrounds are and our areas of expertise, and then of course our networks and our connections. But I would guess that there are many investors that do have quite a bit of leverage as far as working their connections with certain markets and advertising or whatever it might be. But
Sure.
for us personally, I would say that we've come on to we've invested in a lot of these companies very early, so didn't have as much influence over which markets they actually ended up in, which establishments they actually ended up in, but are always providing connections and more connections.
Gotcha. So, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious then, what do you guys kind of look for? And maybe I'm kind of curious to know from both of you, kind of what do you guys look for when, somebody comes to you and says, do you want to invest in, my product or service or whatever they're looking to get funding for? What do you guys look for?
Suzanne, go ahead and then I'll answer it.
I look for, I think maybe my first litmus test is just big market. Is this going to be a big market? Because there's a lot of great business ideas that may or may not be able to grow enough to make it appropriate for angel investing. So I find actually there's a fair amount of, with very early businesses, I end up doing a fair amount of education with entrepreneurs in terms of what kinds of businesses are appropriate for angel investment and what kind of businesses might you maybe be more appropriate to get a small business loan or other kinds of funding. Or, do we need to how their vision really could be a business that would scale large enough to justify equity investing. That's another area. So big market, and then, if I am trying to educate an entrepreneur, I'm looking for, can she listen and integrate what I'm saying and learn? And I look for, it's great when I have an opportunity to build a relationship with an entrepreneur over time, because when I can see that she can, figure out how to go after a problem that she doesn't know how to solve it anyway, or, learn on the fly or adapt to new information. Those are the kinds of things that make me feel like a company, the entrepreneur really has what it takes to take a company the whole way.
Very cool. Makes sense.
Yeah. For me, I kind of go by 5 basic criteria when I'm hearing pitches, and the first one is it female founded?
Okay.
Right now, at this time in my life as an investor, I'm really only interested at the moment in female founded companies.
Sure.
Is it a social impact company? Is it making a difference in the world? That's another criterion that I use. The third one would be, how much of a need is there for the product or service? The fourth would be, how well do I know the space or the industry of the company? Is it something that speaks to me? Because as an investor, I feel like we're most effective if we're investing in companies that are familiar to us in some way, or the industry is familiar to us. We have so much more to contribute if so. And then the fifth criterion is, do I like the entrepreneur? Is she she a good communicator? Like Suzanne said, is she willing to listen and really work together and allow feedback and welcome feedback from investors? So those are all important pieces to the puzzle too. But those are my 5 big criteria for that.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. So maybe there's a couple other companies, that you guys on your website. Is there a couple other that you maybe want to kind of end the show covering kind of what they are and why you guys maybe invested in them?
Yeah, I can add one more that I'm really excited about as well. It's called Mommy, and it's spelled MAHMEE.com.
Okay.
And it is a website for brand new moms, and it's based right now in the LA area, and it offers a 24/7 virtual care and assistance for moms going through the postpartum period with lactation consulting, mental health counseling, any possible needs related to the baby's health, anything related to anxiety, depression, and anything that comes up for brand new moms. You can talk to a doctor at any hour of the day in the privacy of your own home. And it's really fantastic and is much, much needed everywhere. And the founder, her name is Melissa Hanna. She's incredibly dynamic and such a go-getter, and her heart's really in the right place, and she's doing amazing things. And she's not even a mom herself, but really gets it, really understands the need for what she's doing. And as a mom myself, I have 4 kids, and I just identify very, very closely with those very vulnerable days after becoming a new mom, and just how important this service is. It's really fantastic, and I know that it's going to be a lot more prevalent in the future, and she's just getting started.
Very cool.
You know, I do have an investment I can talk about, but I just wanted to piggyback on Karen's description of her investment with Mommy and just say what an amazing example this is of why we need women investors, because I'm a mom too. I actually was a midwife assistant, so I'm extremely familiar with those early postpartum days and the intense needs that moms have and how isolating it is, and how few, how few services really are available, and in today's technology, it's easy to address. So here's an example of an incredible need that a woman entrepreneur has addressed, and she can find investors who really understand her need and can give her meaningful feedback on her products and services, and who really can support her and let her know that what she's doing is really important. More so than, this is not a negative on men, but men just haven't really been through it the way women have. So it's a great example. I love the example of Mommy.
No, I think that's awesome. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just changing the subject if we're done with that one. But
sure.
One of my other investments that I'm excited about, I mentioned already, I have invested in the Rising Tide Fund, which was put together by Portfolio in partnership with Next Wave Ventures. And like I said, that's an angel investment in a fund. So there's 99 investors. Everybody puts in $10,000. So it's nearly $1 million fund. And then it's invested by 9 expert women angel investors around the country. And I'm excited about it because it's actually a great investment because for a relatively small amount of money, I get a portfolio of companies rather than just one. So that makes my investment less risky and more likely to have a return. And it's also just exciting to me because it's a new innovation in investing that's designed to support women entering the ecosystem. And so I'm excited to be involved in that innovation. And it also supports my other investment portfolio. So those are the kinds of things I get really excited about when the work that the company is doing is really meaningful to me personally, when I really actually care about it a lot, and when I could definitely make good money from it.
No, makes a lot of sense. But ladies, we're kind of coming to the end of the show, so let's maybe close the show with again mentioning where people can find you guys, the company, the book, and any other social media links you guys want to mention.
Yeah.
Sure. Our book is.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Our book is, the long title is Impact with Wings: Stories to Inspire and Mobilize Women Angel Investors and Entrepreneurs.
And that's on Amazon.
And if you search Impact with Wings on Amazon, it comes right up at the top.
Perfect.
There's a Kindle version and a paperback version. It's on all the electronic platforms, as far as I know. Let's see, what else did you want to know? We have our website, wingpact.com, that has a beginner's guide and also has an event schedule of our book launch events. We're on Facebook. We're pretty active on Twitter. Those are we do have LinkedIn, but most of our followers are on Facebook and Twitter, and those sites are full of relevant information.
Yeah, and if you visit our website, wingpact.com, you'll see all of this information again, the title of the book, bios, which again is to activate new women angel investors and to get more female entrepreneurs funded. We're really determined to see those numbers increase.
You can sign up on our email list, and you'll get notified of launch events and workshops and all of our activities.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your days to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch, and who knows what the future will hold.
Great. Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.